The House will come to order. The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I did not get a chance to speak on the tax bill last time. I was on the list and I missed an opportunity to do that because I was off taking care of some other business on some other bills that I was working on. So I just want to go through a couple of things in the tax bill. First and foremost, I sit on the Property Tax Division, which I have never done before, never sat on taxes, and this is my first time sitting on the Property Tax Division. And one of the things that we discussed in the Property Tax Division this year was the fact that we are seeing skyrocketing values on homes, right, which is affecting the affordability of property. And so in the bill that's before us today, we have information and funding for additional homestead property tax relief. We also have renter credit relief in the bill as well. And the part that was really concerning that we were discussing was what's happening to property taxes, not only in home ownership, but what's happening to property values and property taxes in general in the state of Minnesota. And as we started narrowing that down, we started talking about what's happening in Hennepin and Ramsey County. And we are about to face right now a real problem on the horizon with property taxes in the state of Minnesota on office or commercial or business property. In the city of St. Paul, one of the largest tenants in this area around the Capitol complex is the state of Minnesota. They have signed long-term leases with property owners, and with a number of those property owners still owning those buildings and us on long-term leases and being the good tenants we are to our office providers, our office space providers, we're paying our rent. But the interesting part about that is the wear and tear on those facilities is almost nil because a lot of those folks are still working at home. And the ripple effect that we have seen is if you are working at home, you are not leasing to park your vehicle. That's affecting the values of those parking ramps and those parking places. What we've also discussed is if you are not there, you're probably not going out to lunch. You're not going out and doing your dry cleaning. And so what's happening is we are systematically seeing the value of commercial property going down, down, down. Now what's going to happen to Ramsey County, and we're starting to see it in Minneapolis and Hennepin County, is that because of these high vacancy rates, the values of that commercial real estate is going down. And not only do these counties have a horse in those races, the state of Minnesota has a horse in that race as well because of the CI tax, the commercial and industrial tax. So as we look at the tax bill today, we've done nothing in this tax bill to take care of the tsunami that we're going to have of vacancies in Hennepin and Ramsey County. And this is actually something that the county commissioners had testified on in committee. So when I started to think about that, so we've got tax relief in the bill for renters. We've got bonus 20% one-time relief in the tax bill for renters or tenants. We also have relief for homeowners, one time, 20%, but it's only one time. What we don't see in here is help for commercial and industrial property taxes. And Madam Speaker, I was wondering if Chair Liz Lagarde could yield to a question, please.
He will yield. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Chair Liz Lagarde, in this bill, is there any relief that's being provided to places that are own buildings like a VFW, a Legion Club, Elks Club, an Eagles Club, some of those different places that do have to pay property taxes? Is there any property tax relief in here for those nonprofits that own property but yet are subject to paying property taxes?
Representative Lagarde.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative O'Driscoll. I am very proud to hear you recap what we laid out to do in the Property Tax Division. You did a very, very nice job, and I think that that conversation is extremely important moving forward. And we have a whole host of relief for people. But if you're asking me if we have anything specific for a VFW or American Legion property, no. But I look forward to next year, and I'll even work with you over the break to have the larger discussion regarding what is happening with this tax structure in the state of Minnesota.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Chair Liz Lagarde. Well, I was pretty sure that was the answer to the question. And why did I ask that question? Because in this bill, these organizations, the Eagles, the Lions, we don't have any tigers and bears, but we do have other charities that are out there, and our VFWs and our American Legions who do have charitable gaming. So they did not receive any help in property taxes that they have to pay. And they're now having problems with the charitable gaming tax on here. So they're moving in two different directions. There's also fire relief associations that are in here. And as I was taking a look at the handout that Representative Patty Anderson passed out, about 20% of the folks that are on this list are an Eagles Club, a VFW, a Legion Club, an Elks Club, a Moose Club. And they're not getting any relief. But yet they're getting hit with the tax on their earnings for charitable gaming. And these are the folks that put right back square into the community where there is need. They actually go and they take care of the people in the community and the community's needs. They're the ones who help people with relief, Christmas time, Thanksgiving, when they can't afford food. Some of that money is used for those activities. So at the end of the day, we're creating a bigger problem by taxing these folks, no tax relief for these individuals, but yet we still have a disparity that hasn't been addressed. And as I wrap up my thoughts for the day on this, I'm just wondering, how many more wars do the members of our American Legions and our VFWs have to fight? Is this the last fight that they're going to have to do? And the last battle that they're going to have to undertake is the taxes. And no tax relief for them on their facilities or tax relief for charitable gaming. Members, I strongly encourage a no vote on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
The member from Douglas, Representative Franson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. So I have here this tax bill, 380 pages. So for the public that's tuning in, that's what this bill looks like. And so there's this song from Tim Hawkins. And he starts off saying, "Hey, everybody, gather round. I'm here to give you anything you like. You want free college, energy, mortgages? Whatever you like, you have come to the right place. Why? I will tell you why." And then the verse goes, "Who can take your money? Who can take your money? With a twinkle in their eye, with a twinkle in their eye. Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government. The government. The government can. The government can." And that's exactly what is happening in this bill. The government, this government, is taking hard-earned tax dollars and redistributing and sprinkling it to other self-interest groups. At a time of a record surplus, $17.5 billion, Democrats are raising taxes by $9.5 billion, including in this 380-page tax bill, $2.2 billion. And while they're doing that, raising taxes and redistributing money elsewhere, they're cutting charities. I took the sheet from Representative Patty Anderson, And I did a quick count, and I have 19 charitable gambling organizations that will be affected. So you have the Alexandria Area Hockey Association, Alexandria USBC, that's a bowling, Alexandria Wrestling Booster Club, Alexandria Youth Baseball Association, the Carlos Lions Club. Now, the Carlos Lions Club, I work at Herbie's Bar and Grill, and the Carlos Lions Club does a lot of work out of there with the pull tabs, meat raffles, bingos, and of course, the electronic gaming. And let's see, the American Legion and Sauk Center. I won't read all 19 of them, but each and every one of these organizations does excellent work in my community. You know, there is a lot of unmet needs, the silent needs that you and I particularly don't know about, but our community members, those running those charitable organizations, do. And I had a few emails, well, a few, I should say many emails, many phone calls, many in-person conversations on this topic. And Judy from Alexandria talked about being the gambling manager for the Youth Baseball Association Alexandria. And her question was, well, first, a statement. Sadly, this is how we can support our youth programs and facilities for our kids. If this goes away, will the state fund our programs through other means? Judy goes on to say that if we don't, we will need to charge significant fees to parents for their kids to participate in baseball, that is, creating haves and have-nots. And this email was brought to my mind after listening to Representative Perryman give her speech. And it brought me back to when I was in school, members, and I wasn't really allowed to do too much growing up. And I really wanted to be in the band. All my friends were in the band, but the rental fee, I wasn't going to get an instrument. And the school, my high school, Elbrook High School, was actually K through 12 at the time. Now it's closed down. But anyway, the band teacher said, you know what, Mary? Mr. Hussey, if you want to play band, the school will loan you a clarinet, but you have to learn how to play that clarinet on your own. And when you learn to play that clarinet, you can then join the regular band. In 1 week's time, I was so excited. I went home and said the school is going to give me this clarinet to borrow while I'm in school to play. 1 week's time, I learned how to play the clarinet, and I was in the band. 1 week. Yeah. And from there, I picked up the bass clarinet and the tenor saxophone, attempted the oboe, but the embouchure was just a little too difficult for me to grasp. But music for me was a gateway out of the living situation I was in. It was my escape. From learning how to play the instrument, I then learned how to transpose music, and much to the ensemble that I belonged to, I would bring out this sheet music that I had taken from Mozart and Beethoven and Bach and rewritten it for our ensemble to practice. And so Fur-Elise was one of those pieces. I still have the sheet music for all the different instruments. But for myself, I was very grateful for that opportunity and that escape. So thinking about the haves and the have-nots. Sports, music, extracurricular school activities, a lot of times are for the haves. And those musical classes, sports, can be very difficult for families to afford. And when a child, a student, is given opportunity to participate in such activities, it can mean the matter. It can be the difference between life and death in a way that that child may find purpose, that student may find purpose in their life and an outlet to escape whatever it is that they are trying to escape from, but in a positive and healthy manner. I am extremely grateful to Albrook, to Mr. Hussey, for that clarinet that he loaned me. And then my grandma found one at a rummage sale for $25. And so she gave that to me. So then I was able to borrow the bass clarinet and the tenor sax from the school. And I still have that clarinet. Don't really play it much, but members, it is so extremely important that we keep our charities alive and we don't punish them. It just absolutely saddens me that we're going after these charities, but yet in our budgets, nonprofits are winning. We are giving more and more tax dollars to nonprofits that are reliant upon government funding. But we are harming the charities that do good work in our communities. Supposedly, we should be happy with a $260 rebate check if you make less than $75,000. So for people that have paid into the Minnesota tax system, the majority of them will not see anything. They will be paying more and more, so that money can be sprinkled elsewhere. I really do hope that we can revisit the charitable gaming, because as Judy says, or wrote in her email, we are going to be creating haves and have-nots. So members, I would urge you to vote no.
The member from Candy, Ojai, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, again, I just want to say, I'll be brief. I never imagined coming down here this year with so much on the bottom line, $17.5 billion, and we're actually talking about the largest tax increase bill ever in Minnesota history is happening tonight with the whole gamut of things. This is a $2.2 billion in this tax bill. I just never imagined. I had some members down in the caucus room a few minutes ago, and they were laughing at me because I actually said to them I had no idea that this was going to happen this year, and they were laughing at me because they didn't believe me. I really thought this wasn't going to happen. So I guess I'm the fool because I really did believe we were never going to talk about huge tax increases like we are right now. So I guess I'm woken to the fact that there just isn't enough money. But I'm also I don't want to just totally get hung up on the e-pull tab thing, but I have heard from so many people in my district that are really worried about this. So, and I heard Representative Stevenson talk about this is not true. Well, I don't know why they are all freaking out, because they really, really are nervous. And Madam Speaker, if I could yield, ask Representative Bonner for a question, please.
Is Representative Bonner on the floor? I'm not sure I'm looking in the right spot. She will not yield to a question. Representative Baker.
Okay, that's a disappointment. I was going to ask Representative Bonner if she has heard from an important group in her community, because it happens to be where my relatives live. They've got two young boys, very young boys entering the Hockey Association, a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're the cutest little buggers in their hockey gear. Can barely stand on skates, but they're loving it. And the Osseo Maple Grove Hockey Association, one of the largest in the state, actually the largest in the state, but one of the largest in the nation, is worried about this. And I was going to ask Representative Bonner, but she's not taking my question. I'm disappointed in that. I was going to ask her how she's going to respond to them, because I can't ask her how she's going to vote for the bill. But what I could do is ask her, if members are going to ask her about this bill, how are you going to help me explain it? Because I don't know how to explain it to folks in my district. I don't know how I can answer that question, and I'd like to have her thoughts on that, because depending on what she does, I think will make a difference on how a lot of the parents that are there and raise money and work with the association and do fundraising. But a huge part of hockey in Maple Grove and Osseo is helping families afford to play this expensive sport through their charitable gambling operation. And I'm disappointed that she refused to answer my question and that she was on the floor and now she's not here.
Representative
So,
Baker, I
members-
just want to remind you that it's the substance of the bill that we're debating, and personality shouldn't be a part of our conversation. Representative
Thank you,
Baker.
Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I would, I'm trying to just get some answers, and I understand it's not possible, but I will tell you that it is a big deal. I do believe that our folks that run the charitable gambling operations in and around the state of Minnesota, in all of our communities, they know what they're talking about when they say this is really going to affect us. So members, I just wanted to get some help from that because my family is part of many districts around the state, and in this one here, what happens to be in Osseo Maple Grove. I do hope we can find resolution. I hope that we can find a way to not hurt these organizations by doing this so much. But again, there's no reason we have to raise so much in taxes in a year. We have so much extra money in the bottom line. So members, I hope that we vote red on this horrible tax bill. Thank you.
The member from Washington, Representative Weens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've learned just a couple of things since I've joined this August group, and one of those phrases is everything's been said, not everybody's said it. The other one that I pondered a bit is the one where if I cannot explain a vote in a breath, maybe I should have voted differently. So as I'm thinking about this, a particular reflection came to my mind about charities. And not too long ago, it was about halfway through the war, and I was up for command. And we were flying back from Iraq, and I was with Red Bull 6, and he said, "What unit do you want?" And I pointed to the unit I wanted, and I said, "I want these." And he goes, "They're like really a troublesome unit. Don't you want the best unit?" And it's like, no, I want the one that I can improve the most, that I can have an impact on, so that I can do something. And he said, "Okay, fix it and don't F it up." And I said, "Roger, sir." And in the assessment, I went through all the different staff things, because the staff guys like telling you, oh, they're terrible on PT, they don't do their urinalysis right, they're not qualifying with their weapons, and professional development, they're just lagging. They're just not getting after it. And if that's the case, you're going to have to bring the hammer down, right? And I go, well, maybe. Let me check it out. I need to go do a site survey. So in preparation for command, the command sergeant major. Now, military units have an officer that has command authority, and then because officers can be a little bit crazy at times, they give them an advisor. A guy like Sergeant Major Newton or Top Hudella, that are people that have chewing the ground, felt everything that all the troops have, and they can give a perspective. So I teamed up with Command Sergeant Major Marcus Erickson, and I salute him today out there. A great friend, confidant, a guy that I greatly respect. So he was newly assigned as well. So we were sort of a command team. With deployments and stuff, people are getting switched around. So it's like, okay, we're going to put you two guys together, go fix it. So we're doing site visits. And I had one unit that early in the war had the most combat casualties, the most KIAs, the most killed in action, the most wounded in action. And they were the ones that had the worst metrics. They were the ones that all the staff guys and the leaders were looking at me to hammer. Now, I had just got done with a deployment where I had built a staff that took our division to Iraq. Historic, not since World War II, had the Red Bulls deployed. We did a marvelous job, yada, yada, yada. But in building my staff, these were all staff guys that I sent off to all sorts of schools all over the U.S. to get their particular training. And these guys were in on it. They already had their masters. Some had PhDs. And they were into doing all the hard staff work. Like we have all our staff here that will work to all hours of the night. When you take command of a combat arms unit, you're dealing with a whole nother animal. And there's a lot of pointy things there. So if you don't get things right, accidents do happen. So I wanted to make certain I was cautious, but that I was deliberate in my actions. And in talking with the command sergeant major, we started finding out that these guys did not want to leave each other. They did not want to take promotions. They didn't want to do the professional education. They wanted to stay together. They were frozen. They were stuck in time when they deployed and they lost their friends. And they would go on long motorcycle rides together. And so as we started talking, I could have brought the hammer down on them. I could have fired the leadership, promoted guys or moved certain guys out and brought new guys in, and just the complexion of the unit would be totally changed. But instead, in talking to my command sergeant major, I said, no, let's take another approach. So we started listening. And what we found out is we need to honor those guys that we lost in Iraq. Can we do a memorial? Can we do something? It's like, well, heck yeah. Why don't we do that? That's the right thing to do. So we talked to the local communities, did some fundraising, and all of a sudden we started seeing these guys join the VFW, because VFW is an American Legion for kind of my generation and younger people. It's kind of not our gig, but they started getting involved because not only were they raising money for their guys that we lost and have a memorial, they were getting involved with their community. They were breaking out of what froze them and what stuck them in time. So much so that they formed their own nonprofit. And they would bike around and they'd do a whole bunch of great stuff in the community. And it was like a wonderment to me. I didn't bring the hammer down on them. I let them talk to me about what the issues were, and we solved it. Fast forward to just a couple of years ago, COVID, the murder of George Floyd, the riots, all of those things just kind of shook me. It's like, what's going on with my state? We need to change some things. We need to get there, and that's why I ran. It's like, I want to be a conduit for positive change. I want to be a healer. I want to be a helper. And the people in the charitable organizations that I know are community. And if there's anything that we need at this time as we're rolling out a pandemic, is those people that build community here, that build trust, that are not political inherently, that want the best for their kids and their community. And I'm afraid that dropping the hammer on them at this point is going to separate us even farther. So in that, thank you, Madam Chair.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I would like to start my remarks with a lot of thanks, a lot of gratitude towards people that we've worked with on this bill. Chair Gomez, thank you. Chair Lislagard, thank you. I'd like to thank the Republican members of the Tax Committee, Representative Swedzinski, Representative Robbins, Representative Olson, Wiener, Whitty, Joy, Anderson, and thank you, Representative Koznick, for all your work on the committee. Chair Gomez, you ran a good committee, and it was certainly an honor to serve on it. I would really like to think, and we know this and everybody says this, but in the tax area, I could never figure out when I was first tax chair in 2011 why I had the very best staff, and I did. And it was one of two things. Either it was the most complicated area in the House, or they were concerned about my competence. One of the two. Yeah, it's the latter. Yeah. But we really did have great staff, and that hasn't changed. That really hasn't changed. From nonpartisan House research to House fiscal nonpartisan to Kelly Kanavati, who has just done a wonderful job for the Minority Caucus. I'd like to go first, and then what I'd like to do is thank Speaker Hortman for appointing me to the conference committee. No Republicans voted for the bill, but you did appoint me so that I could work on the conference committee, and you actually set a world record, just so you know. The world record for most consecutive conference committees is held by me. Thanks to Speaker Hortman. 9, and the only reason it's not Chair Rest is because for some reason in 2018 she was not on the conference committee, but she's been on 23 conference committees. So there's 2 world records there. I would like to go through a few things to we kind of got off on e-poll tabs, which is an extremely important issue. But let's talk about a few things that are actually other things that are in the bill. For you, the members on both sides of the aisle, local sales taxes in the bill. For members on both sides of the aisle, sales tax exclusions for building projects in the bill. Not all of them are in the bill, but most are in the bill. Members on both sides of the aisles, if your cities needed TIF districts, I think most of them that were heard are in the bill. I think most of them are in there. The wraparound pass-through entities, very, very important for our small businesses. It's in the bill. The appurtenances issue that was very important to the co-ops. Since there's a lawsuit, and I kind of agree with Senator Rest on this, you would not allow that in there because there is a lawsuit. And right at the last moment, they said they dropped the lawsuit if we got it in there. But it was a little too late. So we'll work on that. We'll live to fight another day on that one. But as I was hearing, as the tax bill was first announced by Chair Gomez, the media picked up record tax cuts, record tax cuts, record tax cuts. A true statement. It's a true statement. But there's also record tax increases. And that's a big concern of mine. Tax increases, short line railroads. I love that one. Representative Elkins and I worked on that one. Thank you, Representative Elkins, for that one. Taxes, members, influence behavior. And when you increase taxes, if you tax something more, you will get less of it. So as we tax income more, what we are doing is we're penalizing success. If you tax it more, you'll have less of it. If you tax income more, you'll have less of it. And I'm really concerned for down the road that could come back to haunt us a bit. My biggest concern about this tax bill, and Chair Gomez and I visited, and I said, other than all the bad stuff in this bill, it's a pretty good bill. You got some really good stuff in here. But with the record surpluses we have, it's hard to figure out why we couldn't have done this without a tax increase. My biggest concern about where we're headed with this is we are increasing our base funding. That's going to be very, very difficult to keep up with. People back in the day said, those Jesse checks were so stupid. They were so bad. And I said, no, they're really, really good. But the Jesse checks were much different than what we have in this bill. The Jesse checks, there was a third, a third, a third. Senator Moe got a third. Speaker Swigman got a third. Governor Ventura got a third. And why I like those so much is that money went out to everybody. And what did it do? It didn't go on the base. We didn't have to try and make that up the next year or the next year or the next year. We have really increased base funding here. That's a concern that we should all have down the road. So, of course, the most exciting part of my speech is to name this tax bill. And let's just have a little history lesson here. The first tax bill named was the Smoking Hot tax bill, 2011, named after my wife. Yeah. Obviously, Captain Obvious, right? The next one was Chairlyn Chesky's tax bill, and that was Cold as Ice. From Foreigner, you're willing to sacrifice, that whole thing. That's a good one. And then one of my favorites was Don't Stop Believing, Journey. Don't Stop Believing. Well, that tax bill went on forever. We go into special session, we go, and pretty soon it's October, and we're still trying to get that thing signed. So I stopped believing when Governor Dayton vetoed it. Tax bill passed, come together. It was a come together tax bill. And that was an amazing tax bill. Then a tax bill we had a couple years ago was Brothers Osborne, It Ain't My Fault. And today's naming of the tax bill, some of you already know this, but it's Aerosmith. Now you might want to Google it and listen to it. It's Aerosmith, Eat the Rich. You said it was okay, Chair Gomez. Yeah, okay. So that's the 2023 name for the tax bill. And again, I'm very thankful to have been on the conference committee, to be on Chair Gomez's tax committee. And obviously with the massive tax increases, I can't vote for it, but by voting against it, we're still going to get some very, very good things. So thank you very much.
The member from St. Louis, Representative Listagard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm just going to kind of go over a little bit about the e-pull tab situation, and nobody asked me if I've been hearing anything, and I have. And there's a lot of people that are concerned, and fear is one of the most powerful emotions out there, and there's been a lot of fear out there because of uncertainty. And what we did with what's being presented, you need to understand that approximately 50, with the changes that we make, it's about 52% reduction in the tax for the charities. For a year and a half, there won't be any changes. They are going to make a lot of money in the next year and a half with a 52% cut. And that gives us time to figure more things out. When you have developers that serve on the Allied Charities Board, wow. Isn't that incredible? We dropped them from 31% to 25%. I've talked to colleagues, and we're willing for the developers to, why don't we drop them down to 15 and give that money to charities to help the people in our communities. I'm willing to do it because they got a monopoly going on right now. This is a difficult situation that we don't have all the answers, but I'm committed to continuing to work. And the developers that are holding everybody hostage, it's not right. Them and their fancy lawyers and their fancy lobbyists that are pushing this, organizing, serving on boards, it's ridiculous. Those are the conversations we should be having. Getting back to the property taxes, again, Madam Speaker, what an opportunity. It was April 27th, I believe, that we passed it on the floor. Chair Gomez and I have spent a lot of time together. And it is an incredible experience. I have more respect for this institution and the chairs that came before me because of what I've seen it takes to produce a product. It's really incredible. We're blessed to serve here. Yes, there are increases in taxes in this bill. Guilty? It's the perfect time, like I said before. No one should be able to offshore their taxes because then we're paying more taxes here. We did the right thing today, and it's going to benefit us in the future. You know, not many people talk to us about the other taxes on the more wealthy. You know why? Because very few people understand what it is. Because most of us don't make that kind of money. It affects the few and benefits the mass. That's what this bill does. We talk about property tax relief. It is the number one thing I heard on the doors. I didn't hear a lot of people on the other side today talking about what a wonderful property tax report. Not just because it's mine, but you didn't talk about it. Because you know why? It is really good stuff. It is incredible. And it's going to impact the people that we represent all across the state of Minnesota in a very positive way. It's what they asked for. To eliminate the tax on Social Security, I never promised anything, but I continue to work on it. Oh, no, just relax, I'll get there. You'll be all right. I never promised, but I'm committed to working at it. And we did move the needle. We moved the needle. And I'm proud to say we moved the needle. This could have been done last year. There was a joint agreement, but it's gone. And it was a different day with different people sitting in these seats and those seats. You need 68 votes in the House and you need 34 in the Senate to get anything done. To get where we got, eliminate 100% from $100,000 and down and phased out all the way to 140, I'll take it. But I'm committed to continuing to work on that. Even though some of my colleagues, they don't agree, I will continue to work on it. I'm also proud to say about the CPA and LGA, County Program Aid and Local Government Aid. As a former mayor, city councilor, I know how important that is. And this body and that body has been putting so much on our partners. And we haven't been willing to invest. And today that stops. We are going to make that investment. And everybody talks about the surplus, and yes, there's a surplus. Don't forget how we got there. We really haven't raised taxes in the last 4 years since I've been here, divided government. Well, how did we come up with a surplus if we didn't we didn't raise taxes? Does it have anything to do with the influx from the federal government? In the last 4 years, both Democrats and Republicans at the federal level pumping money into our economy had a lot to do with it. 17.6, I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that. Only 5.6 was ongoing. Priorities said we're going to invest in education, our future. That's ongoing money, and we did. Because if we don't invest in education, we don't invest in cities and in counties, none of us here raise taxes. That's not on us. That's on the schools, the counties, the cities, and the townships. That's who raise the taxes, and if we're not helping them, then they have to do what they have to do. And I look at it as 68% of all money generated comes from the 7-county metro. We had this discussion last time, but I think we keep forgetting about that. Greater Minnesota, I'm proud to say that we receive a lot. Every one of us here gets the runs, right? We all got the runs of the county and the city, and I can go right through everyone's list, and you all benefited. But I didn't hear nobody say anything about that. They were focused on the most controversial instead of the positive. Kill, steal, and destroy instead of build and edify. That's not what this body's about. I'm proud of this tax bill. I'm proud of our team, the tax team. I'm honored of the nonpartisan, the partisan team, Patrick. Where's Faith? She saved me more than once. Hi, Faith. I'm very, very honored to be here. To Chair Gomez, again, I'm just going to say thank you, and I learned a lot about myself and about other parts and who you are as a person, and I would be honored anytime to stand shoulder to shoulder with you to go into battle. Please vote green.
The member from Stearns, the Minority Leader, Representative Dabath.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, as we have had debate today, and you have heard some of the good things in this bill, and you've also heard some of the grave concerns that are shared by this side of the aisle and by a number of Minnesotans. And I was going to start with talking about that $17.5 billion surplus that you have heard us mention every time we're in this chamber. But unfortunately, as we near the end of session, Minnesota, there is no $17.5 billion surplus anymore because Democrats have spent it. It didn't go back to the taxpayers. It didn't go back in the way that it should have, either in one time or potentially structural. There is no surplus being returned to the people of Minnesota. As you've heard, this tax bill has $2.2 billion of increases over 4 years. And I want to make sure Minnesota knows these are not revenue raisers. These are tax increases that are very difficult for the people of Minnesota to afford. We've heard how there's going to be tax rebates to some Minnesotans. We heard earlier this afternoon that a family of 5, 2 parents, 3 children, making $35,000, renting, that they're going to get a historic rebate. But members, they have not paid in to the taxes that they are going to be getting that rebate from. We've heard that e-pull tabs and the charitable gaming is very much concern for all of our communities, large and small, across the state of Minnesota, and how it would hurt potentially everyone, but especially those families that want to access extras for their children, the help that is given to our communities. But with this language and how it is going to hurt the charitable gambling through ETAB language that is in this bill, that help will not be available for some of those families that need it the most to access those things. As we heard earlier, a story of a child that his life was changed because of someone taking the time when he had lost a parent. We know that we still have bills left to be done in this place. I don't discount the fact that people have worked hard around the clock to bring this language forward. But I do know that Minnesota expected better, that they expected to have not increases, not gas tax increases, not heavier items that were going to hit their wallets and their income, not things that were going to hit harder. They expect Minnesota to be affordable. And for that, members, I would urge a no vote on the tax bill tonight.
The member from Hennepin, the author of the bill, Representative Gomez.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. So first, one of our colleagues across the aisle said the bill is a shame and that we should be ashamed of the bill. And I have heard some shameful comments tonight on the floor. I've heard some really deeply shameful comments about the sovereign tribal nations on whose land we're standing right now. And you talked about veterans. And I hope that everybody in this body knows which racial ethnic group participates in our armed services at the highest rate, and always has, and that's Native Americans. Native people have fought in every single war that this country has ever entered, And they did so for generations before they were even considered citizens, before they had the right to vote. And so you should know that when you trash Native people and invoke veterans as a reason to do so, that is the height of ignorance and hypocrisy, and you should be ashamed. Native people live in every one of your districts. Every reservation and community in this state is represented by a Republican representative. And if you are talking about the people who you represent in these terms, you are abdicating your responsibility in this body to work for all of our residents across the state of Minnesota. So that's to start with. You know, this bill before us is, we kind of like, we have these numbers on a page and we have spreadsheets, but taxes are about people. This tax bill is about people. This tax bill is about the people of this state. And it's about what kind of a state we want to have for our children and our children's children and our children's children's children. That's our work here, is to think about that. You've heard a lot about this bill. I mean, I think that my partner, Dave Lissegard, kind of gave a really good overview, and you've heard me talk about it a lot, so I'm just going to say a few things further about it, which is that, you know, taxes aren't about punishment, they're not penalties. To me, taxes are about care. Taxes are about how we care for people who we share community with. Whether that community is our neighborhood, or our city, or our county, or our region, or our state, or our country. Taxes are why all of the children in Minnesota have access to schools. Without taxes, only people who could afford to send their kids to school would have educational opportunities. Taxes are why we have public goods. They're why we have roads and bridges and transit. And they're why when you call 911, somebody answers and comes to aid you. That's what taxes pay for. Taxes are not an isolated evil. Taxes are the cost of living in a society. And I'm not sure, I mean, if the Eat the Rich song, thank you, Representative Davids, could have been like a fat joke, could have been a socialist joke, could have been a little of both. Either way, that's good, I'm good with it. But I don't, you know, we don't hate rich people. We got lots of rich people over here too. I just want to point that out. I happen to not be one of them. I use TurboTax or whatever, which I got attacked for, but, you know, but really it's like, you know, you want us to be ashamed. You want us to be ashamed of our work here, of our work for the people. And like, yes, we're taking care of Minnesotans who need it. We're not ashamed of that. We're not ashamed of this bill. We're not ashamed of standing up for fairness and equity in our tax system. We're not ashamed of fighting for the values that we hold dear. We're not ashamed of building a state that works for everyone, not just for the rich. We're not ashamed of that. You know, I've said a lot of thank yous, and I'm going to say one more to our whole team, our partisan and nonpartisan staff, all of my colleagues, everybody who's worked so hard on this bill. But I'll just remind you one more time. You can vote against this bill. You'll be voting against property tax refunds for Minnesotans who need it. You'll be voting against cutting Social Security taxes for seniors, which I will say you all have said you care about. Well, here it is. Here's your chance to vote for it or not. That's up to you. You'll be voting against LGA and CPA. You'll be voting against cutting child poverty in the state of Minnesota by 1/3. So if you'd like to do that, just know what you're doing. And for everybody else, I'd ask you to vote green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. Will the clerk please call the names of the members who are voting remotely?
Her.
Her, aye.
Her votes aye. Walgamot.
Wolgamott votes aye.
Walgamot votes aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 69 ayes and 63 noes, the bill is passed as amended by conference and its title agreed to. Motions and resolutions. There's copies of non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there's no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 1 p.m. Sunday, May 21st, 2023.
Hold on. Representative Long moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 1 p.m. Sunday, May 21st, 2023. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. Representative Long.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Long moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. The House stands adjourned until 1 p.m. Sunday, May 21st, 2023.